Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? The Saints hit the road Monday Night Football, take on the Carolina Panthers. They'll open up division play there in Charlotte. Our buddy Julian Council is good enough to join us here for a couple of minutes. Julian, we always appreciate it, man. How are you?
I'm doing well, Matt. Thought I'd join you on video once in a while now, because every time I join, I see the photo afterwards that y'all use of me, which is like 8 years old. So I'm like, you know what? No more of that. People are going to see my fresh face. I was like 22 when that photo was taken. Now I'm like, I'm 30. I'm old and grizzled. So I got to be on video today.
Old and grizzled at 30. But you know what we should just use? Like, for next time we could use your shot there on Twitter. That's great. I mean, you got the open collar look, you got the sport coat. I mean, that looks official right there. That's Paulie. We got to do this next time if Julian's not on video. We got to use this photo. I like
Yes,
it.
Please.
I like that.
Use that one.
All right. We will strike the former photo forever from our records. Hey,
Love it.
How are the vibes there after a week one loss, but the first time under a rookie quarterback? We all know the expectations long-term are high. How are the vibes after week one?
The vibes internally are good. Frank Reich believes that he saw enough good things from that week one loss, despite the 3 turnovers and 2 of them from Bryce Young. He said overall that he thought that Bryce played well. That a couple of the turnovers, one of them, the first interception, he blamed on himself, where there's a lack of communication between him and Bryce in the headset that led to a delay of game, which of course changed up the play call there. That led to J.C. Bates jumping on the route, getting the interception. And it looked like the second one was Bryce making the same mistake twice, but Bates kind of went off script, did his own thing. And now moving forward, I think a lot of defenses that play, or a lot of offenses that play Atlanta, will be able to adjust towards that. The Panthers just weren't able to do that week one. But Frank Reich feels good about his team coming out of that game. Now, the fan base, well, a little different story, as people are freaking out after watching Bryce struggle with 3 turnovers. And Atlanta had 221 yards. It wasn't like the Falcons were that great. Ritter threw for 91 yards. In the NFL, if you allow 91 yards, you should win that game. So the fan base, they're freaking out a little bit. Losing a divisional game, knowing the Saints are coming to town on Monday night. The vibes aren't great for the fans, but internally, the Panthers don't seem to be all that concerned about the rough start on Sunday.
So, Julian, that's my other big question, really, is when we talk about expectations, this is a Panthers team that they picked first overall, but not because they were the worst team in the league. They were 7-10. Yeah. They had the same record as the Saints and beat the Saints twice. So there's a lot of pieces there. It would stand to reason that they should be able to compete. Is this a season where internally the Panthers are expecting to be able to compete in this division and to maybe win it and go to the playoffs?
I would say no.
Okay.
I would say no because of multiple things. Well, Bryce Young, first off, rookie quarterback. And I recall reading from Monday Morning Quarterback, Albert Breer had a column or conversation rather with Frank Reich right before training camp opened up, talking about how it would be a process with Bryce Young, talking about 2 to 3 years. And understand, for most quarterbacks coming out of college, it takes that long. It took Josh Allen that long. Patrick Mahomes is really the only guy who comes out immediately. And that was really his second year out of college, where he was able to blow up in his first year as a starter. It took Jalen Hurts some time. So you know by year 3 whether you have the guy. So I know Panther fans don't want to hear that, but when it comes to expectations, they really shouldn't be placed on this team until 2025. Now, if things go right this year, as far as Bryce's development, you could see 24 as being a year where this team can contend for the division, if not at least be there in the wild card. So I'll say, 1, Bryce Young, his development, that's one of the reasons why I don't think they're expecting to contend right away. The second thing is just look at the positions groups around Bryce Young as far as offensively in the wide receivers. DJ Chark's been a Pro Bowler, but that Pro Bowl season was an anomaly. And right now he's dealing with injuries, which has really held him back in his career. Adam Thielen's 33. The Vikings moved off of him for a reason, and the guy they took in the first round to replace him, Jordan Addison, had a touchdown on Sunday. I look at the receiving core, and that does not look like a receiving core for a team that's expecting to be in the playoffs, weak division or not. And then defensively, Brian Burns is excellent. For whatever reason, they still haven't paid the guy. They went out and they brought in Justin Houston opposite of him as an edge rusher, but that's not a long-term solution. That's just something that you do. They make sure at least there's some sort of help for Brian. So there's still a lot of holes on this roster that would lead me to believe that the Panthers aren't all of that invested in winning right now, but more so invested in developing Bryce and then seeing where they're at come December and January.
Okay. He's on Twitter at Julian Council, Locked on Panthers. Make sure you subscribe up, especially this week. Get all your Panthers news. I want to ask about Brady Christensen, the left guard and the bicep injury. So both offensive guards now are out. How does that impact Bryce and this offense as a whole?
It could be bad. I was already concerned with Chandler Zavala, who's the 4th-round pick at NC State's been filling in at right guard, and whether he could hold up. And so far, he looked good on Sunday in the limited snaps that he had in the preseason to even win that job. He's looked solid. So the expectation is that he'll either stay at right guard or maybe slide over to left guard, where he'll be linking up with Ike Ekwonu, who he played at NC State with. Only 5 games, though, before he had a season-ending injury a couple years ago. But those two guys at least practice together, have somewhat of a chemistry together on the left side. So I'd expect that to happen. Then after that, at right guard, looking at Cade Mays, 6th-round pick out of Tennessee from a year ago, to potentially fill in there. Justin McCray, he's a veteran who's been with offensive line coach James Campen in Cleveland and in Houston, but had a really bad preseason, didn't make the initial 53-man roster, currently on the practice squad. He's going to get a look. Nash Jensen, who's their UDFA out of North Dakota State, played 70 games in college. And that's a ton of games, as we know. And a lot of guys are playing 7, 8 years now, but not too many dudes are playing 70 games. So he's going to get an opportunity to potentially start there in one of those guard positions starting off on Monday night. They're going to figure it out tomorrow. That's what Frank Reich said. It's Thursdays when they want to figure out who that guy is going to be. So they have 3 options, but in the interior of the offensive line, certainly some concern, as there's going to be some youth there at both those guard spots for the Panthers.
I want to flip it over to defense. No J.C. Horns, and it's unfortunate. That guy's been hurt his whole career, but he's hurt again.
Yeah.
And so how do the Panthers try to match up against the Saints wide receiver group, which Julian finally looks healthy and really pretty good?
I don't know if they can. Now that Horn's out, honestly, and Michael Thomas is already a problem. It's good to see him back. I know Panther fans always like to somehow disparage him by saying he only runs slant routes. Like, okay, well, the guy only set a record for receiving yards in a season, but sure, he's a fantastic player. And in Chris Olave, oh my God, he's a dude. I don't see how the Panthers, who lose J.C. Horn, who's by far their top cover corner. Dante Jackson, he's had his moments in the league, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy just like J.C. Horn. But he's certainly a rung down from J.C. Horn talent-wise. And we saw a couple years ago when he was matched up with Terry McLaurin, who's one of the best receivers in the league. He got cooked that day. And anytime he's really been against some of those top receivers, Dante has struggled. I think he's a solid player, but when you're asking him to defend Michael Thomas or Chris Olave and be the guy for you in that secondary at that corner spot, that's going to be tough for Carolina. Troy Hill, they brought in late. Right before the regular season started. He has experience with this defense being in Los Angeles the last couple of years. He's likely going to start at that other corner spot. CJ Henderson, who's so far been a bust, a top 10 pick out of Florida, who started off in Jacksonville. The Panthers traded for him a couple years ago. He hasn't been great. The only big pass play of the day that he gave up was to a Florida Gator and Kyle Pitts on Sunday, and that salted the game away for Atlanta. He's not someone the Panthers have been able to trust, whether it's last staff and now this staff here in Carolina. So I have a hard time seeing how they can match up, especially at that corner spot against those wide receivers now that they've lost J.C. Horn.
All right, so Julian, a couple more minutes here on Twitter at Julian Council, Locked on Panthers Podcast. So the Saints are a 3-point favorite. So essentially what they're saying is neutral field, it's a pick 'em. So it feels like, the sense is the Saints have a lot of advantages. Where's the equalizer? What are we missing here where the edge goes to Carolina?
Oh, man. I think the Panthers can run the football. We did see that on Sunday. Miles Sanders had a fumble that cost him, but overall, he looked good in his first action with the Panthers. Didn't get to see him in the preseason. Chuba Hubbard, that man ran hard on Sunday. I do think the Panthers can establish something on the ground. Now, there is, of course, concerns in the interior, but Bradley Bozeman, the center, really is the guy who can get that push going. And Ike Ekwonu is excellent, too, on that left side at left tackle with the run game. So I think they could run the football. We'll see how they're able to move those guards. Really, you're just bringing in one other new guy in there. Zavala did well as far as running the football and helping out with that, with the rushing game on Sunday. I'm trying to think, is Saints have the quarterback advantage? They have better receivers. They probably have better corners right now after watching the game on Sunday for sure. On the edge, possibly with Brian Burns getting after the passer, that might be the Panthers' advantage. It's tough to see one right now after week one and some of the injuries that they've sustained, because that's the problem. The injuries on the offensive line, the injuries at wide receiver, DJ Chark, who was at practice today. Still TBD on whether he plays, and he would certainly help a wide receiver core that had 63 receiving yards on Sunday.
That's crazy.
63. That's awful at the NFL level.
It was Hayden Hurst.
They're banged up, man.
I mean, it was Hayden Hurst and Miles Sanders were the two leading pass catchers. You had a tight end and a running back.
That was it.
I mean, look, the Saints have been there before when they featured the tight end and when Kamara was being featured, but man, that's it. Yes, it looks different right now for Carolina. Last thing, for Frank Reich, what is the blueprint on Monday Night Football to beat the Saints and get a win?
They got to find ways to get Bryce comfortable early on in that game. They just never established the passing game on Sunday. The one touchdown drive that they did have that ended in a Hayden Hurst touchdown reception, Bryce converted a couple out routes on some third downs. And if they're able to find some easy throws for him, get him in a rhythm, and just have these receivers really get on the same page with him. And that's the hope over the next couple of days leading up to Monday, which I do think the Panthers have somewhat of an advantage where if they can get Chark back and they can have Terrace Marshall out in the field because he missed a lot of time, had to play a ton of snaps on Sunday without having that connection with Bryce. And it was noticeable. That will help. So if the receivers and the quarterback can get on the same page and really build that momentum early on in the game, I think that's what Frank Reich wants to do. I do think this defense, even with the questions in the secondary, particularly at corner, I still think that's a fantastic unit. And it's not like Atlanta, they don't have a great passing game in the first place, but it's not like Atlanta was really able to challenge them all that much on Sunday. They got to be better against the run, which I think they will, but they can get after the passer. They had 4 sacks in that first half on Sunday afternoon. Saw Derek Brown get in on the action. Of course, Brian Burns had a second half. Frankie Louvu, who had 7 sacks last year, was excellent for them as well in the pass game as far as getting after the passer. So if really it's going to come down to just getting Bryce comfortable, being able to build some momentum with that receiving game, and then be able to use the run, maybe use some play action, and then the defense, just try bend, don't break, maybe come up with some turnovers, something they weren't able to do on Sunday, and the Panthers could have a chance to win that game on Monday night. But it's certainly going to be a tall order, just with some of the injuries that they've sustained so early on in the season against a Saints team that I told you before the start of the season, I think is the class of the NFC South. I mean, how much does that really mean in the grand scheme of the NFL? Well, I guess it's enough to get to the playoffs, but we'll see how it looks like on Monday night.
You mentioned Dante Jackson, DJ Chark, Terrace Marshall, a lot of LSU guys up there in Carolina, man. They like that Tiger blood up there.
Yes, they do. Deion Jones on the practice squad, too.
Yeah, there you guys know. He's on Twitter at Julian Council. Give him a follow, subscribe up to Locked on Panthers. We appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Absolutely, Matt. Take care, man.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.